When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
I again want to thank the Secretary for your work. This issue of transportation is fundamentally about just making sure that people have the ability to get where they need to go. It's that basic.
I'm going to tell you the banger of the summer, okay?
Yeah, okay.
That you need to play for your people, and they're going to love it.
Okay.
Everybody's going to go crazy.
Okay. I like it.
Yes.
I like
this
it.
is the song of the summer, okay? So you need to tell the DJ to have that going, okay?
Okay.
All right.
And you know, when I speak with small business owners and entrepreneurs, some of our younger small business owners actually self-identify as entrepreneurs. They're small business owners also. But we'll go with whatever you like. Small business owner or entrepreneurs. South Korea and the United States, as the Secretary has mentioned, also share strong cultural and people-to-people ties. K-pop bands, they top the billboards in the United States, including BTS, who I had the great pleasure of meeting and inviting to my office in the West Wing. And to the great pleasure of my niece, I must tell you. I also think of the Emmy Award-winning TV shows like Squid Games, which I will confess Doug and I binge-watched at home over a series of weeks. And I think of the actress, Yoon Ya-jung, who I met in Seoul last year when I convened groundbreaking South Korean women. She is the first Korean to win an Academy Award for acting. These are examples of the cultural ties and the intertwined history between our nations.
So I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future. Please be clear. The voices of students, parents, teachers, and preachers will not be silenced, and these voices must be heard. These voices must be heard. They will not be discouraged or deterred, even if using a bullhorn becomes necessary. Because you voted in 2020 and we now have a Department of Justice that actually believes in the pursuit of justice, these so-called leaders dare to tell us they are fighting for our freedoms. Don't you find that interesting? Some have gone so far as to name and brand their agenda the, quote, freedom blueprint. Don't fall for the okey doke. Don't fall for the okey doke. What is happening here on the ground, Mr. President, is truly about understanding the potential and seeing what is possible and then working to achieve that. For example, the work that I'm going to do tomorrow when I visit the farm and highlight the mutual concern that we have in addressing the climate crisis and thinking about how we can bring new technologies and innovative approaches to industries such as the agricultural industry. We intend to do the work of not only investing in the innovation that is taking there, we refer to it as smart agriculture, some refer to it as agri-tech, the application of technology to thinking about satellite technology, for example, and how that gives us data and information that we can give to farmers to give them a better idea of what the seasons might bring. It is probably the main focus of my trip to the continent, including culminating the trip here in Lusaka in Zambia, which is to work with leaders such as the president here as a partner to work together. So on your first point, I'll reiterate my the point I made earlier. We are continuing to reiterate our call for all bilateral official creditors to provide meaningful debt reduction to Zambia. The median age on the continent of Africa is 19. Think about what that means in terms of potential. Think about the fact that by 2050, 1 in 4 people occupying a place on Mother Earth will be on this continent. And what that means.
He really is a true partner, and he understands the job. And remember, we came in during the height of the pandemic. Yes. And so much of the work was about, okay, we've got to cover a lot of bases, and let's figure out how between us we can do it. But he is an extraordinary leader, and I wish that people could see what I see.
Disabled and non-disabled all around the world, I call on you to commit to concrete actions to stop the destruction of this magnificent planet. This conference is one of the most important meetings in history. You.
Oh, wow, I didn't see you all up there. Holy mackerel, don't jump. But my focus is just stay focused.
One of the young leaders was talking to me about climate mental health. I said, tell me what's going on with your peers. Climate mental health. And she talked, I said, I think I understand that, but unpack it for me. And she talked about how her peers are thinking about it. One example is, whether when they're ready, could they start a family? Yes. Worried about what that would mean. And the stress of it. They were talking about it in terms of their peers, trying to figure out, they're going to have to get a job and they're going to have to make a living, but what can they do and how can they adapt the education that they're having now to their activism? In fact, I'm going to share with you a very simple story, which is that I went home one day and I said, well, why are conservatives bad, Mommy? Because I thought we were supposed to conserve things. I couldn't reconcile it. Now I can.
You all please stand as she enters the room.
Hello, everybody.
You can clap. It's okay.
They're all struck. So happy to see you. Have a seat. We're going to have a conversation, Mayor. It's good to be with you.
The border, by many people's account, is not secure. By Border Patrol agents who are there telling the media they just don't believe it is. Do you believe the border is secure now?
I will tell you something. One of our highest priorities is to ensure that we have a secure border, and that is what we are doing. But we also need Congress to act.
Cochise County Sheriff Mark Daniels wants the VP to turn her energy towards our southern border.
You come to a border state where you have border communities that were addressing border issues every day, the tragedies of it, the sadness of it, and we can't get our vice president to even acknowledge it while she's in our state or whether she's in Washington, D.C.
President Biden appointed Harris his border czar in 2021, but she has not spent any time at the U.S.-Mexico border in Arizona.
It's frustrating because it's insulting to all of us that wear a badge, our community folks that live in America, and our Border Patrol agents that we work side by side with. So
we have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration. I love Venn diagrams. I love Venn diagrams. So
see what I'm saying? She is nerdy. I'm just saying.
You know what also excites me? Among the many things, I'm excited about electric school buses. I love electric school buses. I just love them for so many reasons. Maybe because I went to school on a school bus. Hey, raise your hand if you went to school on a school bus, right? Wheels on the bus go round and round. I convened, and I've convened now at least 3 times, a group that has their acronym CARICOM. It is the Caribbean nations, island nations, in the Western Hemisphere. That is where the Caribbean is. We are also in the Western Hemisphere. They are our neighbors. I think of this moment as a moment that is about great momentum, inspired by, yes, optimism, inspired by a crisis, no doubt, but inspired by also our collective ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been. So here's the thing. Who doesn't love a yellow school bus, right? Can you raise your hand if you love a yellow school bus, right? Just, there's something about and most of us, many of us went to school on the yellow school bus, right? So when I think about what the experience should be for our children of going to school on the school bus, I think about the fact that it should be about maximizing that experience for them. So, okay.
Little expansion.
I love Venn diagrams. Okay.
Just a little expansion.
I really do. I love Venn diagrams. You know, the three circles, sometimes there are more. So I asked my team, do me a Venn diagram on from which states are we seeing attacks on reproductive health care, voting rights, LGBTQ plus rights. You would not be surprised to know that there is a significant overlap, right? And speaking of the system of justice, we are also changing, y'all might have heard that this week, the federal government's approach to marijuana. Because the bottom line there is nobody should have to go to jail for smoking weed. But it's exciting. Have you seen the photographs from the Webb telescope? It's humbling. So we invested in this telescope, and the images just came back, and they show us 3 billion years back to the beginning, to all these galaxies. It's the most humbling thing you have ever seen. You gotta have somebody show you for it. It's absolutely humbling. Galaxies we didn't know existed. So when we think we've seen everything, we gotta be smart about it. Here's the last point that I'll share with you. I asked my team, I love Venn diagrams, so I just do. Whenever you're dealing with conflict, pull out a Venn diagram, right? And so, you know, the 3 circles. And so I asked my team, right? They're fantastic.
I'm geeking out right now.
It's something that needs to actually see in your own eyes. And it's so close.
It's 50 meters away. That's
right. That's
Korea
it.
at the wood line.
It is our lowest income communities and our communities of color that are most impacted by these extreme conditions and impacted by issues that are not of their own making. And so
women.
Absolutely. And so we have to address this in a way that is about giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity, understanding not everyone starts out at the same place. And if we want people to be in an equal place, sometimes we have to take into account those disparities and do that work. So the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. And it is an alliance that is strong and enduring. So we invested an additional $12 billion into community banks because we know community banks are in the community and understand the needs and desires of that community as well as the talent and capacity of community.
Would you call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the President and I asked Congress to do. Is the first request we made. Pass a bill to create a pathway to citizenship. The border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system, in particular over the last 4 years before we came in, and it needs to be fixed.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border.
Today, the business of our work is for the Council to report on the work that has occurred since our last meeting across these areas. We will today also discuss the work yet ahead, the work we must still do to continue to move forward. We know that we really are quite behind in terms of maximizing our collective understanding about how we will engage on the technology of today and what we can quickly and easily predict will be the technology over the next decades. So to maintain our position as the United States of America on this issue, it is critical that we work together to understand where we are, to recognize and have the courage to speak truth about what is obsolete, and then to partner to ensure that we are speaking the same language with the same motivation, inspired by the opportunity of it all, but then doing the work of updating how we have been talking and thinking about our exploration in space. So when we talk about equality, well, that's a good goal, but let us not presume that because everyone should be treated equal, that they start out on equal footing. So equity as a concept says, recognize that everyone has the same capacity, but in order for them to have equal opportunity to reach that capacity, we must pay attention to this issue of equity if we are to expect and allow people to compete on equal footing.
Hey, everybody! Hi! Oh. Well, can we give it up for the first, second gentleman of the United States of America? And listen, I'm going to talk about my husband for a second. My husband, I love my husband. But let me tell you, one of the things that has been so wonderful to see about who we are as Democrats and who Joe Biden is when he said, I know that a woman can be vice president, right? Is that with that came another history-making event, which is there is now not a second lady, but a second gentleman. And what that means, let's think about it, because I'm going to talk in a moment about what we stand for as Democrats. And a lot of what we stand for, if you want to step back and think about it, is, as Joe Biden often says, the possibilities. We as Democrats have an ability to see what is possible, what can be, unburdened by what has been.
In fact, when I was in the United States Senate, we were able to do the work of saying that we should focus on the issue of electric school buses. And I was proud to introduce the first piece of legislation to electrify our nation's fleet of school buses to that end. And the transition is now underway. We know that the impact of the climate crisis is not felt equally across all communities. Consider, heat waves pose a greater threat to people who don't have air conditioning or who work in high heat workplaces, such as warehouses or farm fields. Emergency evacuations are often more difficult for people with disabilities. For example, people who use wheelchairs or people who are visually impaired. And in that way, we can move clean energy from where it is created to where it is needed. It is literally about the transportation of energy. How exciting is that?
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
The President and I take seriously our work that is about protecting the health, the safety, and the well-being of the women of America, and that includes the women of Indiana. To put it in law, there may be litigation, but we will be in a much better position than to not do that. And, listen, women are getting pregnant every day in America. First of all, I'll say that I do believe in many ways we are a nation in mourning as a result of gun violence.
Black people are 13% of America's population, and I think it's 62% of homicide victims to gun violence. We got to take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously. The whole nation should understand and have a level of empathy to understand that this can happen anywhere, in any peace-loving community, and we should stand together and speak out about why it's got to stop. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it, because they actually did it. And here's what they did. The court actually took a constitutional right that has been recognized for half a century and took it from the women of America. Everyone has something at risk on this. First of all, if you are a parent of sons, do think about what this means for the life of your son and what that will mean in terms of the choices he will have. I thought about it as, a parent. We have 2 children who are in their 20s, a son and a daughter. I thought about it as a godparent of teenagers. I thought of it as an aunt of preschool children.
And a woman yourself.
And a woman myself. And the daughter of a woman. And a granddaughter of a woman. When we talk about our children, I know for this group, we all believe that when we talk about the children of the community, they are children of the community. And in that way, we should all feel a direct sense of responsibility. That is especially true when it comes to the climate crisis, which is why we will work together and continue to work together to address these issues, to tackle these challenges, and to work together as we continue to work operating from the new norms, rules, and agreements that we will convene to work together on to galvanize global action. With that, I thank you all. This is a matter of urgent priority for all of us, and I know we will work on this together. We also recognize, just as it has been in the United States for Jamaica, one of the issues that has been presented as an issue that is economic in the way of its impact has been the pandemic. So to that end, we are announcing today also that we will assist Jamaica in COVID recovery by assisting in terms of the recovery efforts in Jamaica that have been essential to, I believe, what is necessary to strengthen not only the issue of public health, but also the economy. The governor and we were all doing a tour of the library here and talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children. So I will say what I know we all say, and I will say over and over again. The United States stands firmly with the Ukrainian people in defense of the NATO alliance.
How long should Americans expect? How long should we be bracing for this really sort of historic inflation and some unprecedented gas prices?
Sure. In terms of the discussions that the President Johannes and I had, they ranged in subject, including the issue of the Black Sea, and I'll let him explain in more detail as he would like.
So does that mean you support proposals like what we've seen in Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti saying, take some of the money from policing, about $150 million, invest it in health initiatives, training initiatives for youth?
Right now, what we're seeing in America is many cities spend over 1/3 of their entire city budget on policing. But meanwhile, we've been defunding public schools for years in America. We've got to re-examine what we're doing with American taxpayer dollars and ask the question, are we getting the right return on our investment? Are we actually creating healthy and safe communities? And that's a legitimate conversation, and it requires a really critical evaluation. I applaud Eric Garcetti for doing what he's done.
It is outdated, it is wrong-headed thinking to think that the only way you're going to get communities to be safe is to put more police officers on the street. What we have to do, and what we will do, is reimagine public safety.
We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police. It's to fund the police. Fund them.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
Because as we all know, elections matter. And when folks vote, they order what they want, and in this case, they got what they asked for. I went off script a little bit.
Can you explain to Americans what exactly will they face if this happens?
Sure. As the president talked about in his speech, we are aware that, again, when America stands for her principles and all of the things that we hold dear, it requires sometimes for us to put ourselves out there in a way that maybe we will incur some cost. And in this situation, that may relate to energy costs, for example. You see, during the pandemic, millions of people, families in particular, depended on high-speed internet. Young people used the internet to access digital textbooks, attend virtual classes, and collaborate on science projects, all at their kitchen table. Parents used the internet to buy groceries, paper towels, and other daily essentials. The internet allowed folks to take care of their children and get their essential needs accomplished. Business owners, like the one I met from Missouri last year, rely on the internet to coordinate with suppliers overseas. Many workers use the internet to do their jobs virtually. People everywhere use high-speed internet to stream movies for family movie night. Jaleesa talked about that. To video chat with friends that are far away. To view a tutorial on how to fix that leaky faucet. To read the news, check the weather, or plan a trip. For so many of us, we use the internet as an essential and integrated part of our daily lives.
We're 2 years into this. Why didn't the administration just go out and secure more at-home tests? After the Delta surge in the fall, why are we at a point now where folks still can't get tests?
But we just ordered, I don't have the number in front of me, but millions of tests. We have 20,000 sites where people can go, and I urge people to, you can Google it or go onto any search engine and find out where free testing and the free testing site is available.
But Madam Vice President, the fact that we're still telling people to Google where you can get a test and...
But come on now. I mean, really, if you want to figure out how to get across town to some restaurant you heard is great, you usually do Google to figure out where it is. So that's simply about giving people, right, a mechanism by which they can locate something that they need, something that can help them.
6 former administration officials last week wrote that open letter urging the administration to change course, to change strategy. Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree. Fellow Americans, good morning. Certain dates echo throughout history, including dates that instantly remind all who have lived through them where they were and what they were doing when our democracy came under assault. Dates that occupy not only a place on our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December 7th, 1941, September 11th, 2001, and January 6th, 2021.
For people that are going into their 3rd year of this pandemic, you're talking about cost of living. Was it wrong to consider inflation transitory? I mean, these price spikes seem like they're going to be with us for a while.
We have to address the fact that we got to deal with the fact that folks are paying for gas, paying for groceries, and need solutions to it. So let's talk about that. Short-term solution includes what we need to do around the supply chain. right? So we went to the ports of Los Angeles, Long Beach, Savannah, Georgia, and said, hey guys, no more 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, 24/7. Let's move the products because people need their they need what they need. We're dealing with it in terms of the long term, and that's about what we need to do to pass Build Back Better. It strengthens our economy.
Ma'am, the U.S. is experiencing record inflation, the worst in 30 years, way beyond expectations. OPEC didn't increase oil production. Can you tell us a little bit about how you would prevent the new spending in your Build Back Better agenda from exacerbating the problem? And also, what else are you going to do to fix this problem with inflation?
All right, thank you. Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up, and families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more. And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up. That's about having to stress and stretch limited resources. That's about a source of stress for families that is not only economic, but is on a daily level, something that is a heavy weight to carry. So it is something that we take very seriously, very seriously. And we know from the history of this issue in the United States that when you see these prices go up, it has a direct impact on the quality of life for all people in our country. So it's a big issue, and we take it seriously. We must together work together to see where we are headed, where we are going, and our vision for where we should be, but also see it as a moment, yes, to together address the challenges and to work on the opportunities.
People of France and the people of the United States and the people of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. President Trump is the relationship repair. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
One of the things I think people in politics and government should really take from the approach of scientists. Scientists operate with a hypothesis. I love that. A hypothesis. It's well thought out. It's well planned. They start out with a hypothesis, and then they test it out, knowing invariably, if you're trying something for the first time, there will be glitches, there will be mistakes. Then everyone gets together. No one gets beat up about it. You analyze it, what went wrong, reevaluate, update the hypothesis, and start again. With us in government, we campaign with the plan. Uppercase T, uppercase P, the plan. And then the environment is such that we're expected to defend the plan. Even when the first time we roll it out, there may be some glitches and it's time to reevaluate.
Climate adaptation strategies.
Can you measure trees? Part of that data that you're referring to, and it's in EJ, it's environmental justice, but you can also track by race. There are averages in terms of the number of trees in the neighborhood where people live.
Since 1934, every October, the United States has recognized the voyage of the European explorers who first landed on the shores of the Americas. But that is not the whole story. That has never been the whole story. Those explorers ushered in a wave of devastation for tribal nations, perpetrating violence, stealing land, and spreading disease. We must not shy away from this shameful past, and we must shed light on it and do everything we can to address the impact of the past. It is so good to be back in Atlanta. Happy afternoon, everyone. Can we please hear it for Vice President Grace Hall? We were talking backstage and sharing notes about what it means to be vice president.